wanted to again say good morning to everyone. For those of you that I've not met, I'm Lisa Levine with the Dementia Alliance of North Carolina, and welcome to our Dementia Q&A, our monthly free session where Melanie answers all of our questions. So today we're talking about doctor's visits and all that's involved, and I know that is sometimes how to get our loved one to the doctor, and sometimes what we do once we're there. So our session today is provided by Aware Senior Care, ESI, and Raleigh Neurology Associates, and we thank our sponsors for doing this. We can come to you free. Hopefully you all know where the chat box is. We do have a small crowd, so I imagine that it's okay if people unmute to answer, Melanie, but also feel free to type questions or answers in the chat box, which is usually found at the bottom of your screen with the little cartoon bubble that says chat. So I'm happy to have Melanie Bunn back with us again. She is a training consultant for Dementia Alliance, a nurse. You work with Duke and UNC and so many other, and Teepa Snow, and anyway, we're just happy to have you with us, and we're so thankful for your knowledge and your insight, especially on this tough topic today. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Melanie, because I know we're going to fill this hour up.
Thank you, Lisa, and I am glad to have everybody here, and I do encourage you to share your camera with me. If you you can put on stop video, but please start your video, because otherwise I'm going to think you're not dressed, because you don't have on clothes, and that's why you're not sharing your video. So if you could share your video, it's so much more fun to talk to beautiful faces than just kind of boring rectangles. So thank you for doing that. And if you have questions, just give me a pause, ask me a question, drop it in the chat. I might say, that's a great question, let's talk about it now. I might say, that's a great question, I'm going to get to that a little bit later. I might say, that's a great question, we probably need to talk about that one-to-one. So anyone, or you might need to talk to Dee Dee about that, or Lisa about that. So just give me the honor of responding this way. So let's go ahead and get started. I don't get paid if I don't have a PowerPoint. So I've got the mandatory PowerPoint. So here we go. But don't worry so much about writing down everything that you see on there, or trying to remember everything we talk about, because I'll be sending this PowerPoint to Lisa tonight, and Lisa will send this PowerPoint out to y'all. And I don't do it ahead of time because I never wind up where I never know where we're gonna wind up going. So sometimes I go back and add things to the PowerPoint or change things, or so you'll get that out sometime in the next couple of days. So thanks to Dementia Alliance for sponsoring this. You've got their mission and their thing. So I changed the topic a little bit to primary care visits, because I'm a nurse practitioner, and I am really committed to inclusivity. And so sometimes it's the doctor, sometimes it's a nurse practitioner, sometimes it's the PA, sometimes it's someone else in the office, but it all comes down to the same thing, that it gets complicated. It's hard. So as I look through the amazing questions that this group generated and sent out, and some of you may have sent some of those questions, and I kind of sorted them a little bit into 3 topics. How to get the person to go to the visit was one huge group of questions. How to get the most out of the visit, because there were lots of questions about, how do I talk about this in front of the person? How do I get this information to that primary care provider? And then kind of other kinds of questions. So that's how I kind of sorted it through in my brain. If I left something out, just drop it in the chat, and I'll layer that in as we go through. So we're going to kind of start with this idea of how to get the person to go in for the visit. And I was trying to figure out, there, we kind of started, there's so many reasons why this is complicated. There's so many reasons why it doesn't go well. And it kind of brought back something I'd read in the past, and it's a model by a guy, and his name is Rick Maurer, and it's Maurer, and I've got a link to his website in the PowerPoint, so you don't have to think about writing it down. But he talks about resistance. Now, I have to be honest, I don't like that term when it comes to people living with dementia, because I a lot of times think it's not accurate. So Lisa, I'm going to ask if you can mute everybody except me until we, unless somebody wants to unmute, and thank you. So I don't like that term typically when it comes to resistance with people living with dementia, because I don't think it's often used appropriately or in the right kind of way. But in this situation, I think that the language kind of makes sense, because what he describes as resistance is really reservations, or this doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel right. So he doesn't look at resistance as necessarily a bad thing. He kind of looks at resistance as a communication. So when somebody is being resistant, it means that they aren't on board. And we can learn a lot from that. If I have an idea and I walk in one day and I say, Lisa, I've got the greatest idea. What we need to do is we need to start doing 8-hour programs on Zoom, and we'll do them 5 days a week, and we'll just do them constantly. Now, how many of y'all think, you can show me thumbs up or thumbs down, that Lisa's going to offer a little bit of resistance to that idea? Do you think Lisa's going to be, yeah, let's start it right now? Or do you think Lisa's going to say, I'm not, let's talk about it. I'm not so sure, let's talk about that. So resistance from this perspective isn't a bad thing, it's a thing. So that was the first thing that I found kind of interesting about this model that I kind of like. So he has what he calls them levels. I don't think they work as levels, because to me, levels are something you move through, or you go from one to the other. They really aren't levels. They really are 3 different perspectives, if you will. So 3 different perspectives about resistance. And he says that one reason why people resist is that they don't get it. It's kind of a cognitive thing. I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know why you think this is important. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. So that's one reason why people resist. The second kind of reason why he says people resist is that they don't like it. So and that's the emotional response. So I don't get it is the thinking response. I don't like it is the emotional response. And that might be anything from, I'm really afraid of this, I'm really angry about this, and anywhere else, any other emotion. So I don't like it, I don't get it, I don't like it. And the third one is, I'm going to hold on to that third one, because we're going to talk about it after we talk about the next 2. So I'm going to go back to my screen, and we're going to talk about these individually. So we're going to start by talking about this, I don't get it. I don't understand. So when we think about people living with dementia, that I don't know it, I don't get it, can be a lot of different reasons. So what do you think? Why do you think sometimes there might be resistance when it comes to going to the doctor or the nurse practitioner or the PA, because the person living with dementia doesn't understand? They don't get it. So just unmute and just kind of say, why do you think sometimes they don't get it?
They think they're healthy. They think there's nothing wrong.
Okay, so they don't see that there's a problem. I don't know what you're talking about. I think I'm fine. I don't see what you're talking about. I think things are fine. I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't make any sense to me. There's no problem here. And if there is a problem, it's not my problem, it's your problem. So I think that's a really good one. So thank you for sharing that, Christy. So that can come from a couple of different things. Put your fingers right here. Deep in your brain, right there, is a part of the brain called the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is a little seahorse-shaped structure. And its job in the brain is to bring in information, and it doesn't hold on to it. It sends it out to other parts of the brain to be stored. So what happens with dementia, particularly Alzheimer's type dementia, is information comes in, but instead of being sent out to be stored, it falls into the hole. And so stuff doesn't get moved from the hippocampus into memory. So it all just keeps falling off the conveyor belt, falling off the conveyor belt. So what happens is I'm a person living with dementia and I start making mistakes. So Lisa, I'm going to ask you to unmute for just a minute and mess with me for a while. So Lisa, you're my daughter.
Okay,
And this is the 5th time I've called you today at work.
great.
And I go, well, hey, sweetheart, how are you doing?
Hey, Mom, I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, I have got the best news. Guess what?
What? Tell me.
Christy is going to come and spend the week with us. Isn't that exciting?
That is wonderful news. Yes,
Yes, I am so excited about it. I can't wait.
I know that. That's really a great thing, Mom. It's great.
All right, sweetheart, I love you.
Love you too. Bye, Mom.
Bye. Hey, sweetheart,
Bye, Mom.
I have the best news.
I heard your news. I did.
Well, who told you?
You told me, Mom.
Well, honey, we haven't talked in forever.
Oh, well, I thought you told me Christy was coming.
Yes, isn't that wonderful news?
It is wonderful news. Yes,
I'm
Mom.
so excited.
Me too. That's great.
All right.
That's great.
Well, I love you, sweetheart.
I love you too, Mom. Bye.
Bye. Hey, sweetheart,
Hi, Mom.
I have the best news.
I know, Mom. I know Christy's coming to visit you. You told me. You
Well,
just
who
called
told
me
you
and told
Christy
me.
was coming? Did she call you and tell you?
You told me, Mom.
So anybody want to guess what Lisa's blood pressure is doing? Anybody want? Yeah, Serena's going. Yeah, like this. Anybody want to guess what Lisa's heart rate is doing? But I don't see a problem, do I? Because every time I call Lisa, it's what?
It's new. It's the first time.
It's new. It's the first time. And some people go, well, why? Okay. Okay, Mom. Now, if you can remember that Christy's coming, why can't you remember that you've told me about it? Here, let me show you on my phone, Mom. Let me show you on my phone. Here, you have called me 12 times today. I'm going to get fired. I'm going to have to come live with you. And Lisa's going, why can't she remember? She can remember Christy. She always loved Christy Moore. So now Lisa's getting emotional. She always loved Christy Moore. Why can't she remember? And the reason is people remember things that have emotions attached to them. So the emotions of being excited about Christy coming do what? Make those connections in my brain, that gets connected and stored. But with Lisa, that's just kind of doing business, right? So I don't mind that I've called Lisa 12 times at work to tell her that Christy is coming. So Lisa knows it's a problem, but I what?
Oblivious.
I don't remember that I've called Lisa 47 times this week. So that's one reason why this understanding can be a problem. I don't understand. Lisa's going, Mom, you're calling me all day long. Something's wrong. You know, Mom, you're leaving, you're forgetting that to pay your bills. Something's wrong. Mom, you're leaving the groceries out on the counter. Something's wrong. Those are new things. You've never been like that. Mom, you forgot my birthday. Something's wrong. So Lisa knows all that, but there's a problem. I don't know all that. Can you force it in? Not unless you can fill in those holes in my brain. So unless you have a way to fill in those holes in my brain, you can't get me to remember it. But there's another part of the brain that's involved as well. Put your hand right here. So this is your prefrontal cortex. And this holds on to a lot of brain functions. And one of the brain functions that it holds on to is something called, well, the problem when it doesn't work, it's called anosognosia, and it'll be on the PowerPoint. You can look it up. And what it means is basically understanding, awareness, and insight into a health condition. So it's controlled by here. So it's that idea that I have insight into what's going on in my life, insight into how it's affecting you. It's part of dementia. About 50% of people never know they've got a problem, and they're not in denial, and they're not trying to cover it up. It's that they truly don't recognize, because this part of the brain is impacted, they truly don't recognize that there's anything wrong. And again, unless you can fill in those holes in my brain, you can't convince me. So Lisa realizes that she's not going to be able to make me understand. She's not going to be able to explain it to me, because explaining feels like arguing. She's not going to be able to get me to agree with it. I'm confused about it. It's not working. I don't have that perspective. I don't have that awareness. I don't have that insight, but she still wants me to what? Go in for that appointment. So let's look at what might you try. Now, notice I did not say what's going to work, because I can't guarantee that, because everybody's different. So when it's, the issue is they don't get it. I don't understand. I don't get it. What might you try? Well, you might try focusing on what I do know. So what are some things that I remember, because they're things that I remember from before. So some of those things that I remember from before might be that health is important. So if I'm a person who's always done, followed the rules, I've always gone to my appointments, maybe that's a way to kind of get me to go, that, your health is important. You've always gone to do this kind of appointment, so it's time for it. So you don't have to try to get me to understand things are not right now, you have a problem. But if you say, oh, Mom, it's time for your doctor's visit, that might be okay. I might not be willing to go because there's a problem, because I don't know there's a problem, but I might be willing to go because that's just what we do. It's just time for it. I might know that if I have some insight, my brain health is connected to my body health. So I might know that some people who get older have changes in their memory. I want to keep my body healthy so my brain will work. The other thing that might work is it's already paid for. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to do this. The other thing that might work is it's already paid for. So it's part of your insurance. It's already been paid for. So let's just go, because if you don't go, you're wasting money. So that's something that is from the past. So some strategies for that. I don't get it. So any thoughts about some of those things you might want to try, or some of those things you might think about trying? Take just a moment and reflect, and we'll talk about it at the end, what you might try in your situation. So just take a moment and reflect. Because we're going to move on to that second part. And that second part is, I don't like it. That's the emotional response. That is, you're always coming in here telling me that something's wrong with me. I am fine. I don't need you in my business. Now, I am fine. I don't have any, and it kind of overlaps, but it overlaps with an emotional kind of piece. I don't like it. Or maybe it's, I'm afraid of it. I see this a lot in people who have other family members who have dealt with dementia. So if my mother had dementia and my mother-in-law had dementia, and you bring up the word dementia, to me, it's panic time. I don't have that. That's not what's going on. It's not what it, or it might be really terrifying. And maybe if I don't go, I don't hear the words, I don't talk about it, maybe it'll go away. So that is that little bit. Maybe if we don't talk about it, maybe we don't use the word, maybe it'll go away. So let's think a little bit about that issue of, I don't like the way it feels. So what happens when we have strong physical, emotional kinds of reactions is our amygdala, which is a different part. It's deep, deep, deep down in the brain, and it's like this. And this is your hippocampus, this is your amygdala, deep down the brain, and it goes, it's dangerous. And as soon as it starts going, it's dangerous, this part of your brain stops working. And y'all may have noticed that in yourself. Have you ever noticed when you're in a time of crisis and you're really afraid, or you're really angry and frustrated? The way I look at it is, have you ever been in an argument with somebody, and as soon as the argument's over, you know exactly what you should have said? So Christy's kind of smiling, Lisa's nodding her head. It's anybody else? Mary Beth has kind of got a little bit of a grin there. So as soon as the argument is over, you're leaving, and or maybe it's a confrontation, maybe it's not an argument, but you know exactly what you should have said. When your emotions go up, this part of your brain, your logic and your reasoning, goes down. So you lose that ability to really think when you're distressed. So what happens with people living with dementia is that amygdala goes up, they get really afraid, they get into fight, fright, or flight responses. So they get, I'm going to run away, I'm going to hide, I'm going to fight you. And because they can't fight their brains, they can't hide from their brains, they can't freeze from their brains, who do they tend to take that out on? What appears to be, yeah, and Christy's going like this. So they tend to think about us as the threat instead of my brain as the threat. So then it becomes an issue of, it's not that, it's, I'm afraid of you, I'm angry at you. So what can we do about it? Because it's not enough to just talk about what the problem is. The problem with dementia is their amygdalas are already flared up. So they're already higher. So if we everybody kind of go like this. So we kind of spend a lot of time right here. We're aware that we've got to stay upright. We're aware we've got to keep up with what's going on, but we don't feel, we're just in aware. People living with dementia spend a lot of their day, move up about halfway, in risky. So it's feeling risky or dangerous. So we spend all of our time here. Occasionally it feels risky. Sometimes it feels dangerous. They spend a lot of their time here in risky. So it doesn't take very much for it to move from feeling risky to feeling dangerous. And this part of their brain, which is the part that we slam it down and we say, you're overreacting. It's not that bad. It's probably not somebody breaking in the house. It probably is the tree limbs on the window screens. It's not dangerous. It's okay. We can shove that down. We have a moment where I stand up from the table and I go to the kitchen to get something and I go, okay. So I was eating dinner and I knew I needed something. And I walk back to the table and I go, oh yeah, I needed a napkin. So then I go back and I go aware. I go, oh, I wonder if I've got dementia. But we go, no, it's just, I'm tired. I've got a lot going on. I was in the middle of a conversation. I'm okay. For that person living with dementia, it flares up. So what are we going to do about it when it's related to this? What are some of the feeling strategies? Well, the big responding to someone who it's feelings is, it sounds so easy to read it on this PowerPoint. And it just sounds like, oh, just take a breath and let go of your feelings. Oh, just let it go. Don't take it. How many of y'all have had somebody say to you in your life, calm down. Oh, Mary Beth is giggling with this one, and Christy's looking a little smirky now. Calm, and Serena's kind of going, happened just the other day. Calm down, you're overreacting. Does that help? That doesn't help. So when I tell you to take a deep breath and don't take it personally, I say that, but I also realize it's so hard to do. When it's your family member, when it's somebody who's important to you, or when someone's saying it to you and they're like this and it's hard to shove it down. But you know what you got to do? Do this, shove it down. And this is really important. So do it with me. Shove it down and find a way, pull it up together tight like this to release it. Because what too many of us do is we keep doing what? We keep shoving it down and shoving it down and shoving it down and shoving it down. And it gets into this knot and we're going, ah! So you just can't keep shoving it down. You've got to find a way to put it together and release it. So I want everybody to take a moment and identify, how are you going to release it? Because you can't just keep shoving it down. Because whether it's about going to the doctor or the nurse practitioner or the PA, or whether it's about you're stealing my money, or whether it's about these decisions are hard, or whether it's about whatever, how are you going to release it? I know one of Lisa's. What are one of yours, Lisa? One of your ways of kind of letting it go?
Playing with my puppy dogs.
Playing with her puppy dogs is how she lets it go. So she may get out there and take her puppy dogs for a long walk, and she's throwing that ball and she's doing stuff, and she gets it out. She is able to release it and get it out. What about for somebody else? How do you get rid of it? Let it go. Because you can't just keep stuffing it down. It doesn't work. So what are some other ways some people let it go?
I talk about it with my sister, and instead of, with them, we just kind of vent to each other, I guess. I don't know if that's the right way to go about it, but
Yeah.
the I'm sorry works beautifully, because my dad is the one who is suffering with it, and he confronted me and said I was mean to him on the phone just the other day. I'm like, my first instinct was to argue with him, and I just was like, I'm sorry, Dad, if I did that. And then it just shut it down. And he goes, "Oh, well, I love you." But had I argued with him, it would have totally been, yes, yes. So it would have spiraled.
So there is true power in I'm sorry. It's two of the most powerful words in our language. I'm sorry, because it's incredibly hard for anybody even the most argumentative person to argue with somebody who's agreeing with them. It's like trying to push Jello. It's really, really hard to argue with someone who's agreeing with you. So using that, I'm sorry, but we have calls in my family where we call them, "You won't believe what mama said" calls. You won't believe what mama said. And then we all get it. And we would never tell anybody else what mama said. But the three of us you'll not believe what mama said, and just have those conversations. So having that person who gets it to have that conversation with is a beautiful way to let it go. What are some others that you've tried for anybody else? You can put it in the chat or you can say it out.
I find walking with my friends through the woods, like going for a dog walk, but I don't have a dog, sadly, but going for a walk with my friends through the woods, bit of water, wildflowers, have a rant. It helps a lot, yeah.
And that's kind of 3 for the price of 1, right?
Yeah.
Because with friends,
Nature.
it's a big thing. You're outdoors, which is another big thing. Just being outdoors can help. And the third thing is moving. So that's 3 for the price of 1 where it comes to it. So I love that. So let's go back to the PowerPoint and look at some of those strategies. You take a deep breath and let it go. Talk to a friend, go for a walk, go outside, validate the person's feelings. You're really frustrated. You're really angry at me that I brought this up, or you feel like I've betrayed you, or you're really sad that things are not the way they used to be. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. And you may not have done anything. And for some of us, it's really hard to say, I'm sorry, when you haven't done anything wrong. You didn't argue. You didn't mean it. But I'm sorry just means I hate that we're going through this. I'm sorry life is taking us this direction. And then change the focus to what they do like. So maybe they do like saving money, or maybe they do like following the rules, or maybe they do like being in charge. So if you give them the control, okay, you don't think this is a great idea. Okay, so would you rather go see the person you know or somebody you don't know? So giving them some control can be helpful. Now, I said there were 3, so we've talked about I don't get it, I don't like it. I didn't tell you the third one, because the third one I wanted to bring at the end, and his third one is I don't like you. I don't like it. I don't understand it. I don't like it. I don't like you. So that's hard to hear. That's incredibly hard to hear. But it's one of the ones that he identifies as being why people resist. And it may not be you specifically. It might be, I don't like anybody who points out my weaknesses or my mistakes. I don't like anybody who tries to tell me what to do. I don't like anybody who is younger trying to be in charge of things. So it might have to do not so much with you as a person. It might really have to do with your gender, or it might be your age, or it might be, I don't feel like my children, I feel like I should be providing for my children. My children shouldn't be providing for me. Or I feel like I should be taking care of my spouse. My spouse shouldn't be taking care of me. So it might be the relationship or the role they don't like. They don't like this, and you as a representative of this. So some strategies. If you're at this point where you feel like every conversation is about, Mom, you need to go to the doctor. Mom, have you made that appointment yet? Mom, I'm worried. I care about you. I'm only telling you this because I love you. Mom, I love you and I'm worried about you and I don't want this to get worse. It might be something that might be treatable. It might be something we can work on. I didn't put that one in there. I probably should put that one in there. It might be something that might be treatable. I'll add that one in. let go of that issue and back off, because just like when I could remember Christy was coming and I couldn't remember that I'd call Lisa, if my relationship with anybody gets to the point that I dread seeing them come in and it doesn't bring me joy and pleasure, or I may not remember why Lisa is trying to, why I don't feel good about Lisa, or why I don't like Lisa, or why I'm angry with Lisa. But when she walks in my house, I feel it in my body. I feel my shoulders rise up and my face gets tense. And when Lisa starts walking in, and as soon as she walks in, I start to look kind of constipated. She knows that it's time to back off and let go of it. Because maybe it's not going to be you who can manage that issue. Maybe you have to find somebody that they do like, and they might like that person because it's a different gender, or because it's an older person, somebody who's a peer. I've done well with working with clergy and attorneys and accountants. For some reason, those people have a different kind of authority than I, as a daughter, does, or a family member might. Find somebody they do have confidence in, and then rebuild that relationship. And we have some videos on empathetic communication and some videos on how to make those connections and build those positive moments. And Lisa might drop some of those in the chat, or we might add them in as we when we send out the PowerPoint to you. So that idea of dementia takes away a lot, but what dementia doesn't have to take away is the relationships and connections. And that really leads into this next idea of how to get the most out of a visit. So we've got the person living with dementia, we've got the care partner, we've got the primary care provider. So person living with dementia, care partner, primary care provider. The most critical relationship is this one. Oh no, that's wrong. That's not the most critical. The most critical relationship is this one. See, that's why I don't send the PowerPoint out.
Yeah.
The most critical relationship is the relationship between the person living with dementia and that care partner. You can find another doctor, nurse practitioner, or PA. You can find another person that you can go to. We've got to protect that relationship. So how to get the most out of the visit, how to get the person there, the piece that we can't jeopardize is that relationship between the person living with dementia and that care partner. Oops, so I have to do it on this one too. So we've really got to, the big value is to protect that relationship. So if the person has insight, so that idea that the person, half of people are going to get it, half of people aren't going to get it. We're going to go to the doctor. We've got to figure out what's going on. We're going to go in for a follow-up. This person knows they have dementia. They're aware of their dementia. They're curious and interested. Sometimes the person living with dementia is more comfortable talking about it than the people around them. Sometimes doctors and nurse practitioners and PAs don't want to talk about dementia. Oh, well, you're just tired, or they're not comfortable. Talk ahead of time about what they want to ask. Make some list. And then in that visit, use that list to kind of support them in what they wanted to ask, and using that correct pronoun. So by that correct pronoun, what I mean is she was wondering about medications, or we've been wondering about medications. So making sure or I've been wondering about medications. So really, if it's you, if it's the person, if it's the two of you together, really acknowledge and claim that. And making sure that if the person has insight, that nurse practitioner, PA, physician talks with the person living with dementia. Now and I'm a nurse practitioner, I'll claim this, a lot of times we don't. And that's not just with people living with dementia. I took my mom broke her foot. She didn't have dementia. She was only in her 60s. And we went to see the orthopedist, and the doctor looked at me and said, now, does your mother take any medications? And I looked at my mom and I said, so Mom, do you take any medications? My mom pulled out the list and read them all out. And the doctor wrote them all down. And then the doctor looked at me and said, does she have any allergies? And I looked at my mom and I said, do you have any allergies? And she told him, and it was almost like he needed a translator, but we were all speaking the same language. It was just very strange. How was her, he looked at me and said, how's her pain? I looked at Mom and said, Mom, how's your pain? I mean, and when you put dementia in that pattern, it gets so much worse. So making sure that that primary care provider really is focused, and you can do that with where you sit. I sometimes will sit beside or behind. So it's really clear, this is the person you are talking with. I'm over here to the side and peripheral. So that can be really important. That's challenging, but most of y'all are probably interested in, what do we do if that person doesn't get it? If that person doesn't understand that they've got dementia, they don't get, how do we talk about it when the person doesn't get it? Because I believe if that person gets it, we're 99% of the time, we're better off talking about issues with them and in front of them. Because what people worry about and what they're afraid of, the unknown often is much more frightening than the known. So people have the idea, I'm going to become like Aunt Sally. And then when we talk about that, we say, no, Aunt Sally had schizophrenia. That's a different disease than dementia. Or Aunt Sally had a head injury. That's different. Or Aunt Sally had dementia, but she also had these other things going on. We didn't know how to go with the flow. So we spent her whole life trying to make her understand. And we don't have to do that anymore. So if the person doesn't have insight, the one to do, one not to do. The to do that I think can be really helpful is to reach out before the visit about, how do we talk about this? So you may reach out to that primary care provider. It may be through office personnel, or it may be through whatever way you interact with them. How do I get some time to tell you what's going on? Mom doesn't have insight. How do I explain to you, I have information that you won't get unless I share it with you. So how do I do that? Can I email you a letter? Can we talk about it on a phone call? Can I have a 5-minute phone call with you to explain what's going on? Can I send you a video of the mom I live with? And I'm using mom. It could be dad, it could be spouse, it could be partner, it could be anybody. Can I send you a video of how my sister's acting at home? So you'll see what's going on. Or can I get a separate appointment? And I'll pay for that if I need to. But can I get a separate appointment to tell you what's going on? So reaching out ahead of time, so you know what is the best way to connect. So I can tell you what I'm seeing. Because if I tell you in front of my husband's going to say, that's not happening. You're making that up. And it'll just make it hard for us. And going back to this, it'll make it hard here. And this is what we can't have being hard. So what's the best way for need to give you the information that I've got. So you will have the information you need to give us guidance. What's the best way to do that? What you don't, so I said one thing you'll want to do and one thing you don't want to do. And the thing that you don't want to do is to act secretive. So what happens is, you know, I am sitting there and I'm making hand gestures. People living with dementia are not stupid. You know, there's a huge difference between being stupid and having dementia. And in my experience, I've worked with a lot more stupid people without dementia than stupid people with dementia. I mean, that's just been my experience. Y'all might have something different. But in my life, you know, the stupid people often have not been the people with dementia. So when we start to try to hide things and we're trying to whisper things on the way out, or I said, oh, mom, I've got to go to the bathroom, and I walk out right behind the nurse. You know, people get really suspicious of that. And then what starts happening is it almost becomes like middle school. So do you remember middle school when I would say, did you see what she's wearing? I can't believe she did that. Did you know she's talking to something? It kind of gets to that little, and it makes everybody uncomfortable, including the person living with dementia. So what you do want to do is try to find those ways to connect ahead of time. And what you don't want to do is to act suspicious and to act like you're following the person out the door. You're talking with them. You're going, oh yes, things are fine. Everything's going really good at home. Yes, we're not having any problems. She's taking all of the medicine. Yes, it's going great. That's what you don't want to do, because what happens is, put your hands together like this. What dementia doesn't have to do this, is break the relationship. So lots of things change, but we should still be able to have that connection and have that relationship and have that way of being together. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to give you 30 seconds to think. When was the last time you had 30 seconds to think in your day? That was just to think. I'm pulling up my phone. I'm pulling up my timer. I'm actually going to give you 30 seconds to think. And during this 30 seconds to think, what I want you to think about is, what are, of the things that we've talked about, what are you going to try? And it might be, I think the reason my mom is being resistant, or my dad is resistant, is because he doesn't understand, or he doesn't like it, or he doesn't like me. And I'm going to try this way of responding to that. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think about it. Then I'm going to ask you to share with me what you thought up with. So I'm going to start the timer, and you've got 30 seconds. It didn't go off. It usually goes off with a ding, 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 but it didn't go off with a ding, 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 ding. So 30 seconds is up. So what are you going to try? What is your new awareness or your new insight or something you're going to try? You can unmute or you can drop it in the chat.
Let him be in control. Make it look like he's in control.
Okay. So letting her look like she's in control. So you can do that by giving her choices when you don't care which one she chooses. So if I say, Mom, do you want to go to the doctor? And she says, no, I'm in a mess because I gave her a choice and neither one of those, that one's not okay with me. So how are you going to give her control, Dee?
I think if you say, we got to keep you healthy. He's always been wanting to be healthy and he considers himself healthy. So I would say, when do you want to go to the doctors?
Yeah, when do you want to go to the doctor? And you might narrow it down a little bit and you might say, do you want to go next week or the week after?
Yeah, yeah.
And give a little bit more, control. Or do you want to go in the morning or the afternoon?
That's
Right.
Mm.
So that's
Yes.
your D is and we're talking about my dad. So he hasn't even had a neurology appointment, and I think that's the biggest concern of trying to schedule that. And so I was looking at it more of like, hey, it's all, you have great insurance, it's already paid for. It's just kind of like how do we convince them it's like a routine thing, like, or not that anything's wrong, that we just want him to go. And I don't know what
So are you and Dee related? Is that what you were saying?
he is
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe what you do is you set up an appointment for both of you. You set up an appointment for.
The patient is my dad.
Right.
Okay.
So you set up one appointment for Dee and one appointment for your dad. And then you can always cancel the one for your mom.
Okay. See, like both are going to get checked out. Yeah.
So we're both going to get checked out. My appointment is this week. Your appointment is this week. My appointment is in 2 weeks. This is something that is recommended at our age, at our situation that we do. This is something that's recommended. So you're going to go, I'm going to go. It's just something that people do.
We're at our age.
Yeah, at our age.
Yes.
So it kind of normalizes it.
And we don't even have to have an appointment set up. We can just tell them there's one set up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can say, you're going to go and then we're going to set up mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is he older than you?
Same age. A few
4
months
older. Hey, 4 months older.
Well, then you can say, you're older, so you get to go first.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So good strategy, good thing to try. So who else has something they think they might try?
So Melanie, this is Lisa. My stepmom and my dad had come to an agreement where she wouldn't talk about him without him being in the conversation. They came to that on their own, but he felt like she had been talking about him. So they agreed. So now if I talk to her on the phone, he'll come over and say, are you talking about me? And she'll say, yes, I'm telling her about the doctor's appointment we went to where the doctor said, da, da, da. And then he's okay. It doesn't really matter what she says, as long as if he asks, she kind of owns up to it and says he's at a place where it's more important that he feel in control and not left out of the conversation. And so if I'm on the phone, if I've talked to her and then he gets on the phone with me, he'll say, well, did she tell you everything about me? And it's kind of a negative statement, but I say, yeah, we talked about your doctor's appointment. How do you think that went? And then I can ask his opinion on it and get his feedback. And it makes him feel like it's more about him again and in control, and that we're not hiding anything from him. So that's made a big difference with him, is just feeling like he's part of that conversation. Nobody's going behind his back. I think that's a really good point that you made there.
Because one of the things that makes life not feel safe is feeling like the people you love are being sneaky.
Mhm.
And that never, ever makes the world feel better. So it is 10 o'clock. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank everybody for being part of it. For the people who will listen later on, yay, I will send Lisa I'll put those little changes in and I will send you, I forgot what one of the changes was. Email me if you remember what the change was I said I wanted to add. I'll remember it, but
Okay.
so I'll send that out and Lisa will send it out. And if you've got other questions, you need to have other conversations, reach out to Lisa and we can figure out who the best person is to respond, if it's Lisa or if it's Dee Dee or if it's me. So I look forward
Definitely.
to seeing y'all next time.